All right, time in for the recording. Welcome back. We are ACI Course 7, Class 3. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we get glimpses into how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. we know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. All right. Last class, we learned the 3 different types of morality. First level is avoiding the morality of refraining from harming others, which would include trying hard to avoid the 10 non-virtues, and or taking any one or more of the ordained vows, or any one of the lay vows, 1 or more. Yeah. So refraining from harming others has those 2 levels: non-vowed refraining and vowed refraining. We learned. Second level morality, the morality of collecting goodness, right? Which the activities for doing that, the guidelines are the 6 perfections. And then the third morality is doing those first 2 with this heart that wants to benefit all beings, right? Working for the benefit of all beings, meaning doing the first 2 under the influence of our bodhicitta. Then your quiz said, name and describe those 4 wonderful qualities of our bodhisattva vows. And the verse, the Tibetan verse says, they're taken from another. which seems like a funny quality of the vow. And what it means, we learned, is that they help us develop our conscientiousness, right? Because we have somebody that I don't know, what's the right word for that? That we want to we want to live up to the promise we made before them, right? So we're concerned about their what they'll think of us, right? I mean, I'm trying to put it in terms that don't reinforce all these mental afflictions about, right, our relationship with others and all the mental afflictions that come with that. And in this case, it's a healthy relationship to have somebody that we pledged something and then to want to live up to their good opinion of us. This is supposed to be a healthy, positive thing, right? Yeah. Second, the short version is pure intention, but it means they help us develop our own personal self-conscientiousness, our own high opinion of ourselves. Not prideful, not like that, but in the sense that we set a certain standard for our behavior, and then this state of mind helps us keep to that behavior regardless if anybody else would ever know. It's a healthy state of mind to say, I have enough self-worth that I will refuse to do these behaviors. I will guide myself to avoid them because of my own healthy self-esteem. So these vows help us grow that kind of self-esteem. I have vows. I can behave in this way. Third one, excuse me, even air went down the wrong way. Fixable, they are fixable, which is meant to help encourage us try. Because even if we mess up, we can repair them. If they weren't repairable, it'd be like, I can't do this. I know I'm going to fail. I won't even try. So it's really helpful that we know that they are fixable. And number 4 is that once we develop those first 2 qualities strongly, the consideration for the impact on others and the high self-esteem, we just won't break the vows in the first place. So somehow that's a quality of the vows, that because they help us grow those 2 states of mind, then we can keep them well. Anyway, so then lastly, for the review, what was it that Jetson Kappa said about the belief that once you have the highest vows, you don't need to bother with the lowest vows? Chris, what did he say? Right.
Yeah, he said it was like so much, the idea was like so much garbage.
Right.
It was like ruining the crops with horrible weather.
Right. A downpour of hail just flattens everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the higher vows are built on the foundation of the lower vows. Like once you grow those behaviors, you're not going to quit doing them. Okay. But apparently during Jetson Kappa's time, there was this misunderstanding that you didn't need the lower vows. And curiously also, it just popped into my mind now, in that cultural tradition, it apparently got to the place where people were getting their empowerment sort of right and left. Once the Lower Diamond Way teachings became available in Tibet, they had not yet grown this understanding that, you need this foundation before those higher practices will even function. So, you'd get into Buddhism and then you get all these initiations and all these practices, but you have the good seeds for meeting them, but you don't yet have the good seeds for maintaining that foundation that we're relying on from past lives' behaviors. So it's not a bad thing. It's just that if we aren't reintroduced to the lower vows, once we have the higher vows, we won't stay with the practices of the higher vows. We won't have enough goodness to be able to keep them, right? So I can see maybe why that might have been the case in Jetsun Kapa's time, that he would be saying, no, you need to have these lower vows first before you even enter into getting the higher vows. And if you already have your higher vows, go back and get your lower vows. You actually get them in getting higher vows, but they just, right? I guess the whole system assumes you already know you have those. And if we don't, right, we need to learn. So anyway, here we are learning. So then once we see about the moralities and about the power of vowing to avoid deeds, and we see the way the deeds or the way the vows are developed, we're meant to succeed with them, then, and the danger of disrespecting them, the idea is, maybe we're convinced enough that these behaviors are in fact something that we might be interested in declaring ourselves to learn to be like that. So it's like once we learn about the vows and we have this sense of they're worth learning, right? So if they're worth learning, we go on, like our next question would be, how do I get these vows? Like once I want them, how do I get them? So this class is about how we become prepared, and then how we actually receive the vows. It's about the ceremony and so forth. So for the vow ceremony to actually turn the vows on in our mind, we must be motivated to receive the vows by our bodhicitta, this thing called bodhicitta, right? We've learned Lord Maitreya's short definition of bodhicitta, the wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. That definition will come up again and again and again in our study of the ACI Foundation courses. So we have already learned that bodhicitta comes in two forms, the deceptive form and the ultimate form, but it also has two other great divisions called munsem and juksem. Let's get our vocabulary list up here. So munsem and juksem, please say munsem and juksem. Munsem, sem is the word for mind. Here, the mind of a suffering being, but here it's short for the Changchub Sempa, the sem being the mind that wishes to reach total enlightenment. for the sake of all sentient beings. All wrapped into the word sem. Mun is prayer. So mun sem means prayer wish. The wish in the form of a prayer. This is speaking to our aspiration. Like when we first hear about what it is to become Buddha, and we hear an explanation such that it's like, wow, I see how that could actually be possible. And if we have the seeds, once we've heard that, to go, like we have that feeling, like, wow, that's interesting. Wow, maybe that really is what I'm meant to be, what I'm meant to do, right? We have some kind of attraction to that explanation of what it would be to be Buddha and how that could help the beings in our world, and our first inclination is our loved ones, right, that are hurting so badly. And then, of course, we learn to grow that out further. So this munsem, the wish in the form of a prayer, is just having this aspiration. Well, someday I will do it. Someday I will reach my Buddhahood. Geshe said, it's like thinking about how wonderful it would be if I could take a vacation in Hawaii. Thinking about it, wondering, wanting, right? Wanting to go, but not really doing anything other than maintaining the idea of wanting to go. So just to get munsem, the wish in the form of a prayer, is really an extraordinary goodness. It takes extraordinary goodness to hear a teaching that says, you know what, you're meant to become a Buddha someday, and not go, nah, that can't be right, but to be attracted to it, and then to go on and hear the explanation of how that could happen, how it's true. And again, not go, oh yeah, that applies to other people, not to me, right? But rather it's just like, wow, cool. But still not have sufficient goodness yet to step in and say, okay, I'm going to do it, because we don't quite know enough yet. So it's just a really, from the teeny little light movement in our heart that's attracted to the idea, all the way up to, wow, I really, really, really want to be a Buddha, but not yet doing anything, not yet acting on that wish, other than to just cultivate it. So juksem, the same word, sam, wish, juk means action. So the action wish. This is where that munsem is strong enough that we choose behaviors through which we are acting in order to help all living beings. Right? Once our thinking how wonderful it would be to go to Hawaii gets strong enough, we finally buy the tickets, pack our bag, and go. Hey, this is juksem. Not meaning go to Buddhahood, meaning start acting from our wish to become Buddha. So true munsem, genuine munsem, that alone is a great and uncommon thing. Geshe says, you have true munsam, like full on munsam, when we look on every being as our only child, with the love of a mother for her only child. And he says, by every being, we mean every driver of every car whizzing by, every bug that gets smashed on the windshield of all those cars. You know, every being that you see, hear, know of, think of, every being, not leaving a single one out. And again, typically, our munsam is inspired by the people we love and their suffering. And then as we get familiar and our own goodness grows, we make, on one level, we make fewer and fewer distinctions between the people we love and the people we just like, and the people we don't like, and the people we actually really actively dislike. We make fewer and fewer distinctions between them in terms of our wish that their suffering could end. Right? Eventually, we're going to grow our love for them to be love like each one of them are our only child. But even that form of love doesn't necessarily mean you have to like them. Right? My parents would always say that about, when we were little kids and we're struggling with somebody we don't like. My parents would always say, look, love them, especially about our brothers and sisters. You guys are brothers and sisters. You have to love each other, but it doesn't mean you have to like each other. You don't have to do things together, if you don't have common interests, but you can't stop loving them. And, I never asked him, what do you mean by love? So love means we want them to be happy. And when we really do want somebody else to be happy, it doesn't matter whether we like them or dislike them, we're still going to interact with them in a way that's going to be helpful. So Munsam is growing this, gosh, I wish I could be as kind and helpful to that one as to this one. I wish I could care enough about the bug to right, that they could be happy. That being could be happy. And then it grows, we grow our munsam into this urge to do something different, right? To get off our automatic pilot. We cultivate our munsam into juksam by repeatedly growing our understanding of their true nature. Right? Those others, they are empty of self nature. They are being forced to have certain projections, certain experiences, forced by the ripening karma to perceive themselves and their world in a way which is all suffering. Every moment is suffering. Obvious, suffering of change, pervasive. And then comes the suffering of death, and then the suffering of what comes after, as we learned. That mind goes on. If they were human mind, projecting humanness, it loses everything that it works so hard to get. And in the moment after the end of that, that the experience of that mind is so totally different, and it may or may not be better. So we don't know when that death will come, theirs or ours. So Munsem is, oh, I wish I could do something to help them get out of this mess. Juksem is, I'm gonna do something to try to help. When we see other beings as in trouble, it's it's less likely that we'll stay in just the level of the wish in the form of a prayer when we actually perceive that they are in trouble. And then these teachings say, well, look, anyone who's in desire realm, this suffering realm, they are already halfway into the jaws of the Lord of Death. Right? I mean, technically, from the instant we're born, we are headed towards the end of this life. So we already are in the jaws of death. For most of us, it appears that he hasn't bitten down yet, but we don't know how close we are. When we see beings around us the way we do, as ordinary humans, yes, we see that life is difficult for everybody. Yes, we have some concern and compassion, but our compassion is a whole lot stronger when we see somebody, actively in trouble, actively suffering. And these teachings say you don't have to be in active suffering to be suffering hugely. And so aspiring bodhisattva trains themselves to recognize the suffering in others. And it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's such a downer, right? The foundation of Buddhism is just like, see how terrible things are. Well, they're not that terrible, are they? And that's a danger, right? We all have sufficient goodness that maybe things aren't so bad for many of us. And it's a huge, huge, huge mistake. One of the people that did the great retreat with Geshe Michael and Christie, her name was Petra. And she's part of the Lama Zopa Rinpoche lineage, but did her 3-year retreat with Geshe Michael. And she gave a teaching when she came out, and she used this phrase of, I want my bodhicitta to be my permanent address. Like, she had lived with a temporary address for a long time, right? 3 years in retreat. And I liked that phrase, my permanent living space is bodhicitta. How beautiful it would be just to have the wish in your heart, even if you weren't able to go so far as to do any particular behavior. But you see how when we have that wish in our heart that's that strong, like it's constantly on our mind, just walking down the street, you'd be more careful about avoiding any ants, right? More careful about going out of your way to not disturb the flock of birds, waiting for the traffic to go by instead of being the pedestrian in the crosswalk because you can, right? Just this constant concern about having some little positive effect on any being that you interact with. So often after this part of this class, I get the question, but we don't know others' karma. we can't really know whether they're suffering or not. Mm. And it's true, we don't know. What we do know is what we perceive and how we respond to what we perceive plants seeds for what we will perceive in the future. So, yes, we're concerned about their suffering. Yes, the suffering we see in them is our seeds ripening. We don't really know what their seeds are. And there's a danger of following that train of thought. Well, they're empty of self nature. What I see happening to them is coming from me, not them. That's true. But if our conclusion then is, oh, so their problem is not my problem, right? What I see going on with them, that's my problem. But what's actually going on with them, that's their problem. Or even getting to the place where we say, well, they're empty. So really, they and their suffering don't really exist, right? So both conclusions, right, are based on truth. They do lack self nature. Whatever's going on with them, we can't know exactly. All we see is our karma coming from us. But the wrong conclusion is, so therefore, it's not my problem. The accurate conclusion is, oh my gosh, it is my problem, right? Whatever suffering I see in them is coming from my seeds. I must do something to change my seeds. It's a perfect opportunity to do something, even if it's simply smile or hold the door or tonglen. It is our seeds ripening. And so we want to do something to help. Yes, they and their suffering does not exist in the way we think, in it, from it. It does not mean that there isn't a being there who's having the problem that you're seeing them have. They are there because our seeds are ripening them there. And they need help, right? They appear to need help, and so they need help. They are an opportunity for us to help somebody. All right. So once our Munsem reaches a certain level, wanting to juke them comes naturally. What kinds of deeds can actually help? Because the worldly things I try to help my neighbor, maybe they help, maybe they don't, but either way, she goes on to some other, drama happening next week. This delightful, tiny little woman, just she has one of those lives where it's just something that she personally needs to handle and sort out, something with her kids, something with her aunt, something, just something with her house. There's always some kind of big thing that she has to deal with. And it's just like, man, can it get easy for her for a minute, please? We help, but it's just something else comes. That's the nature of the world we've made by misunderstanding where things really come from. So when our Munsum gets strong, we want to do something to help, even if when we know that it won't help ultimately yet. And probably most of us are already in that position. We try to help, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So wanting to take vows, when we understand about karma and emptiness running the show, oh, I see why things may or may not work. And how can I make this shift so that what I do for them shift the seeds in my mind to, number one, help me see myself actually doing worldly things that do help a little. And how can I go on to make the seeds to be able to help them in that ultimate way through which they will go on to stop their suffering forever. It leads to our wanting to do the behaviors that will lead to that. And that leads to wanting to get the vows to do the behaviors that will lead to that, which technically the vows are to avoid behaviors that would block us from being able to do that. All right. So Nagarjuna's, he has a text on how to take bodhisattva vows. Like he wrote us an actual ceremony. And in his explanation of how to go about getting vows, he actually only speaks to how to generate this munsem, how to generate the wish. Because without the wish, the action, even if we do those deeds or avoid those deeds, without the wish, the deeds are not going to bring the result that we're looking for. So he gives a ritual to pledge to grow the wish, to pledge to grow this feeling in our heart that every bird, every bug, every human is my only child. He uses the only child example. Other teachings use my mother, right? My mother. This being is my mother from a past life. And so I want to repay her kindness. It's a little different feeling than my only child, right? Anybody have kids here? I don't, but I can imagine, and to grow this feeling towards anybody, everybody, any living thing of, my own child. And to take a vow to grow the wish he's talking about. So apparently there was like misunderstanding of how to use Nagarjuna's ceremony over the years, because people came to understand it as Nagarjuna saying we should take the ceremony first as a wish to be able to act like a bodhisattva. And then when we've tried acting like a bodhisattva on for size for a little while, we go back and say, now I'm ready to actually take the vows to act like a bodhisattva. And Jetsun Kappa is saying, I think that's what Nagarjuna meant. And it's like a subtle differentiation. He's saying Jetsun Kappa is interpreting Arya Nagarjuna as meaning we would want to first pledge to develop this wish, the wish in our heart. I wish I could see every worm and want to pick them up and hug them instead of you, right? I'll save its little life, but you, right? Instead of, oh man, my favorite worm, right? I mean, who does that? We can take a ceremony to pledge to grow this wish. Do you see it's different than saying, I pledge to pretend I'm a bodhisattva until I can do it good enough that I could actually take my vows. The first ceremony isn't about wishing to be able to act, it's wishing to get this love. And it could take a long time, couldn't it? Or not. And then once we have this, oh, everybody, I want everybody to be happy always. That's when we go back to the preceptor and say, I'm ready to act on this wish. Like, I've got this wish as my permanent address. Now will you give me vows? Okay. Curiously, it's the same ceremony. That's why it's confusing. Somehow Nagarjuna did not write a different ceremony for growing the love, pledging to grow the love, and pledging to act from that love. So we have one ceremony. We use it for both. And when there is a bodhisattva vow ceremony happening and people have been accepted, there can be other people witnessing, and they can be using the ceremony as an opportunity to pledge to grow the wish, without anybody else knowing. And even the people who are there who intended to take the vows as the action vows, but when they get there in the middle of the ceremony, they think, oh, I think I'm not quite ready. You can shift your own motivation to say, no, I'm going to take this ceremony as a pledge to get the wish. You see, and we would want it to be clear that it's not just the wish to be able to do the activities, it's the wish to grow this heartfelt love for all sentient beings. Okay. And it's up to the individual who's in the ceremony, how they're using the ceremony, which is really a beautiful system, right? Okay, so Munsem and Juksem. They say to take the ceremony to grow the Munsem, and then later take the ceremony to swear to uphold the vows of the actions, makes our vows more firm. Because our motivation in taking the vows is going to be stronger if our munsam, if we spent time and effort to grow that love. Okay. All right. How are we doing here? So the vow ceremony has 3 parts. It has Jorwa, the preliminaries. It has Nushi, which is the main event. And it has Jukchok, which is the conclusion. Of the 3, the Jorwa, the preliminaries, is the longest, the most involved, and it's setting the foundation for the getting the vows and the effect those vows will have on us. So they say that the preliminaries are the foundation for getting our vows. So it's more important really than the main event. It has 5 parts. The preliminaries have 5 parts. The first is this one, Soadapa. Sowadapa means to ask the Lama to give the vows. So requesting the vows. Part of requesting the vows is to make an offering, right? Typically, when we request anything of anyone, we would also offer them something as part of our request. You know, a little bit like a bribe, but it's not a bribe. It's a token of our appreciation. So the traditional offering that's used is called the 37 pile mandala, which you've probably seen it, you know, that one person in the group will have this set of metal, this metal set that's got a plate and 3 rings, and it's got a whole bunch of grains and jewels and thing. And as we say the prayer, this person's putting the grains into the rings and they build this thing. It's a fun merit-making practice to learn to do the 37 pile mandala. So ideally, somebody in the group who's getting the bodhisattva vows does that mandala physically, and all the rest do it mentally. So either way, it's useful to learn. And they're going to be teaching it at the Diamond Mountain coming up retreat, but they don't have enough time to really teach it properly. And so if it's something that you're interested in, it's something that we can do. It takes, you know, probably 16 hours of classes to learn how to do it. Okay. So Solwa Dep is requesting the Lama to give the vows and offering the mandala. So now one would request to receive the vow ceremony before the actual ceremony. So this is in the ceremony. The students there make this formal request, and you're guided in how to do it in the ceremony. But in Jetsun Kappa's commentary about all of this, he uses this time to outline what are the qualifications of the person wanting to receive vows. They're called the vow taker. And what needs to be the qualifications of the vow giver? And what does the vow taker need to do to prepare the space, to prepare their mind to actually receive the vows when the vow taker gives them? So he goes off on this tangent. In your reading, you'll see it between his explanation of the preliminaries, the requesting and offering preliminary, and the gathering, which is the next one. So who can take the vows and who can give the vows? The vow taker, he gives 4 requirements for a vow taker. A good Gelukpa list. Number 1, any human, ordained or not, can take these vows for the first time, he says. I don't quite understand that distinction. Like, if we're human, we can't take them for a second time. I don't think it means that. But for instance, your amazing, wonderful dog, right? If you wanted them to get their bodhisattva vows, it would not be able to be for the first time, right? They would not get their vows if they didn't already have their vows. And, you know, I don't know, it seems it's ridiculous that vow ceremony, bodhisattva vows are meant for humans. So human. Second, they have to have some form of munsem, some wimpy little wish to benefit others. The stronger, the better, of course. Third, they must have the intention to keep those three moralities: the restraining from harming others, the collecting goodness, the doing both in order to help others in that ultimate way someday. Any other intention that we have when we're in the ceremony, even as we say the words and the fingers get snapped, the vows won't happen. And so the vow master's job will be to inspire this intention to be strong, leading into the nushi, the actual event. Right. So without that intention to keep the three moralities, the vows won't form. And they say then that the vow taker should have already been living according to avoiding the 10 non-virtues for some period of time. They don't say how long. Enough to where that student has demonstrated to themselves that they can avoid those harmful behaviors and choose different behaviors. And supposedly, when you go to the vow master to ask to receive the vow, they're going to somehow assess that, ask you about that, right? If you're not their personal student, in which case they know about you, they're probably going to ask you about that. So you would want to have prepared. I used to tell these little white lies to wiggle out of stuff, but for the last year, I've been really, really careful to stop doing that, right? To demonstrate that we've already been able to guide our behavior with the freedom, the first, avoiding harming others. An alternative to the 10 non-virtues is to have already received one or more of the freedom vows and have been living according to those for a certain period of time. So the freedom vows are the ordained vows at whatever level, or the lifetime lay vows. Either of those would be sufficient for preparing us to actually get the vow. The 1-day vows is another freedom vow that isn't included in what prepares us for receiving bodhisattva vows. Unless we were to say to that preceptor, I do 1-day vows 5 days a week and have been doing it, for 6 months. Because if we did do that, we would be changing our behavior, right? What the preceptor is looking for is evidence that I used to be this selfish jerk and now I've changed at least a little bit. Am I ready to receive those vows? Then the vow giver, who can give the vows? If we're the student and we're looking for someone to give us the bodhisattva vows, there's some criteria that we would use in order to choose that person. Most of the time we hear it's being given and so is going to give them. And we just automatically assume that whoever decided so-and-so is giving the bodhisattva vows, they must qualify to give the vows. But it's our responsibility to check to see, do I perceive them as someone who has the qualities that inspire me sufficiently that when I make my pledge to them to keep these bodhisattva vows, I'll actually do it. So here's the list for vow giver qualities. There are 7. Number 1, they may or may not be ordained. However, they say it's probably better if they are ordained. They don't say why. But if we think about it, culturally, ordained people are held in a bit higher respect than lay people because they are openly declaring themselves as renunciates and on their spiritual path. And so they would be a more powerful karmic object for us if we had that opinion of them. You know, and I'm not so sure in the West if we have that as automatically as I see it, right, in other countries. Second, it's best if that same person can give you higher vows later. But again, it's not necessary. If you have a personal teacher, it would be ideal for them to be the one to give you your bodhisattva vows and for them to be the one to keep carrying you along the path, right? Your relationship with them, your devotion to them, your interaction with them as your powerful karmic object is much more beneficial than when you have you're part of a group bodhisattva vow ceremony. It's given by somebody you'll never see again, right? Can you get the vows? Yes, absolutely. Can you keep them well? Yes, absolutely. But you can see how the relationship with your preceptor would help us out. Third is they can be man or woman, which is nice that that's clarified, because again, culturally, Buddhism is very male oriented, and it feels like the women are left out. And it was only culturally, it only culturally happened. It's not anything from Buddha's teachings side. Then number 4, they themselves should have some form of the wish, right? You want to take your vows from somebody who's got, you know, more bodhicitta than me, at least. Number 5, they should be keeping their vows well. Now, you know, how do you know what vows anybody has? And how do you know how well they're keeping them if we don't read their minds? But we can spy on their behavior. And if they're a teacher, we can spy on the behavior of their students, because their students will reflect the teacher's behavior if we aren't close enough to see the teacher's behavior. Jetsun Kappa points out that if they've had vows, but they've lost their motivation, they shouldn't be giving vows, and we shouldn't ask for vows from someone whose practice has degenerated. And again, you know, how do we know? How do we judge? But the moral to the story is that we should take some time to check out who it is we're relying upon. We learned it about the qualities of a teacher in earlier classes, I think. And the same goes for who we're going to go to for receiving our vows. We're supposed to check them out. It sounds kind of rude, but we're told, we're given permission by them to check them out. All right, let's take a break. I see I've gone past our hour. I'll stop the share. I'll pause the recording. Recording's back on. Screen share is back on. Number 6. Number 6 quality of the vow giver is they should be practicing their 6 perfections. So we're watching them to see, are they stingy? Are they still wanting lots of things to be satisfied? Are they needing more and more and better and better? Are they disrespectful of others' needs? Like how do they demonstrate their level of morality? Do they get upset easily and stay angry? Perfection of patience. Do they enjoy their good deeds, or are they doing everything begrudgingly? Right, meditation, we can't judge anybody else's meditation, but we can judge their apparent level of mindfulness in their off cushion time. And then wisdom, the only way we would be able to have an opinion about someone else's wisdom is, if we interact with them enough to see how their analytical thinking works. And of course, if we are involved in them teaching, we can get a clue. Are they holding wrong vows or wrong views? Are they disrespecting other people? Right? It's our own judgment, of course, that we're looking, not to criticize them, not to put them down, but just to see, do I respect this person enough? Do I admire them enough that when I pledge my vows to them, it'll stick? Okay. So last one, number 7, they must know the vows. They must know the ceremony. They must know how to use the ceremony to give the vows. They must be able to read the people's reactions during the ceremony to be able to, adjust their sermon, adjust the process. And then they should be able and willing to help the students afterwards. They use the term willing to bring them up, meaning available to help with problems, etc. And they need to know the literature surrounding the bodhisattva behavior, right? So they need to be knowledgeable. Tsongkhapa says about in his time, it can be hard to find somebody with all these qualifications, right? It's kind of maybe even harder now. But he says, don't be lazy, right? You can find them. When we understand about karma and emptiness, we know what we need to be being like in order to see someone with these good seeds. So if we're in a position, it's like, there's nobody in my world I would take vows from. It means, right, we're not seeing anybody higher enough than us to be able to do that. What do I need to do, right? Maybe my pride's in the way, right? Maybe, right? Change my behavior and then go looking for a preceptor again a little bit later. So we can really see how it all feeds into each other. The using the avoiding harming others in order to grow our wish, in order to grow even enough goodness to see somebody that we admire enough to take the vows from. So now what does the vow taker do to prepare? Like you've received your approval for being part of the ceremony, or maybe you even instigated it on the day of the ceremony. The vow taker's job is to make the place beautiful. So wherever you're going to do it, you clean it up, you decorate it nicely, you put up a traditional altar. For Bodhisattva vows, you use an image of Shakyamuni Buddha. And then any other images you want for inspiration can be there too. But Shakyamuni is the main Bodhisattva vow Buddha. Traditionally, you put an offering of a big bowl of fruit. And when you prepare the big bowl of fruit, you wash it all nicely and you place it in this big bowl. It should, a big bowl, and it's like mounded with fruit. We want it to look generous and abundant. And when you put the fruit in there, you place the fruit flower side up, which is like different than, at least in the West, our habit. You know how an apple has a stem at the top? And so when you set the apple down, you set it with the stem up, and that's the apple up. But that's the stem side, it's not the flower side. The flower side's the bottom. We call it the bottom. But the flower side, right? The flower is representative of virtue ripening. And then from our virtue came the apple. So you put it flower side up. It looks like the fruit's all upside down when you see a proper offering, right? So not everybody knows those details. So you'll see altars where the fruit is stem side up. Not to worry, now you know better. The vow giver should be on a throne, but not meaning a big fancy king's throne, just meaning their seat should be higher than the seats of those who are taking the vows. So you arrange for that. Technically, if your situation is such that you really just can't find anybody to give you the vows, you can't get to a place where vows are being given, you can technically do the ceremony yourself in front of an image of Shakyamuni Buddha. And the Shakyamuni Buddha comes through the image and grants you your vows. But they say it's much better to go to the trouble to find a teacher to give them to you, right? Don't be lazy. And now that it's acceptable to receive them online, which has been proven that it does work, like there's no excuse to say, I'm just going to give the vows to myself. Once you have the vows, you can retake them in front of the image of the Buddha when you need to. We'll learn about how to clean up broken vows. You do that in front of a preceptor, but you can reinforce your vows as often as you want on your own by using the ceremony again. Okay. So I'm still talking about what the vow taker does to prepare. First, you clean them, set up the space. Second, the ceremony will take you through this. You go to the vow giver and show your respect. Traditionally, you prostrate and touch their feet. Next, you offer a mandala. Again, that 37 pile mandala, it represents the pure world, that the seeds we make through the practices we learn create this pure paradise. And this is what it looks like, or it is like, more than looks like. Then you request to receive the vows 3 times. By making that heartfelt request, it prepares us to receive the vows. If we don't really want the vows, even when we make our request for the vows won't come. Like we really can't get the vows if we're ill prepared or badly motivated, right? If we have it wrong, even as we're there and we think we get the vows, we won't. Everything is designed to have us adequately motivated. Mm. And then number 5, there's a time in the ceremony where you go from sitting down to kneeling in vow taking position, which you can do the chicken squat, which you're on, both feet are down, but you're squatted down, right? Like a lady in the rice field planting her rice, right? Squatting on our hunches. Or we can do one knee down, one knee up, which when we do that, it's the right knee down, the left up. And then we put our hands in vow taking hands, which for a sutra vow, the right hand holds the left one like this. So, prayer hands is like this with your thumbs tucked in, but vow taking hands is here with your thumb knuckle at your heart. Okay, so the preceptor will say, now take the vow taking position, and they'll describe it if we need. Then the next list is the vow giver has certain responsibilities. Before we get to the being in vow taking position, the vow giver is responsible to give a talk about the benefits of bodhisattva vows. They give a sermon to arouse our enthusiasm and our motivation. The scripture says that if a person makes offerings to all the Buddhas in the universe, or a person takes their bodhisattva vows, but really doesn't even keep them very well, the person who takes their bodhisattva vows makes a bit more virtue than the non-bodhisattva offering to all those Buddhas. So what that means is a lousy bodhisattva is better than no bodhisattva at all. And it's meant to encourage us, even when we go, oh, I can't possibly keep these vows well. I really, really want them. I'm going to try, and I intend to try, but I know I'm going to foul up. It's still better to have the heartfelt wish, get the vows, and try and fail than it is to say, no, that path is too hard for me, right? I'll stay on the path to nirvana. Second, the vow giver's responsibility is to explain about which vows are more serious to break and which are less serious. So in the ceremony, the vow giver will go through the 18 root vows and talk about the 6 perfections that are the behavior of the secondary vows to remind us. It's not enough to, in that sermon, there's not enough time to really learn the vows, which is why we have this course first. Then third, they will make an effort to have the vow taker be happy and encouraged and pump them up with how special they are, how the benefits of what they're doing and have done will eventually help all living beings, to encourage our sense of urgency, not frantic, but now we want to get these vows now. Okay, so all of that was Judson Kappa's commentary on the requesting, the preliminary of requesting. The next preliminary is so, which means collection. Here, the preceptor is doing the collecting. They are collecting all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in all corners of the universe to come and witness this event of new people receiving their vows. And those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do come whether we can see them or not. They will be there with you. This huge audience watching this amazing, important event. And the preceptor will remind us of their great qualities and how amazing they are and how wonderful it is that they are there for us to witness this ceremony. The third preliminary, Dompa Nirdu Goa. This is making our verbal request that the preceptor grant the vows quickly. And it always includes the quickly part for some reason. So this is where we're instructed, get into vow taking position and ask the vow giver sincerely to give us the vows now, soon, quickly, please. It's like this begging, right? Please, 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 now give me the vows, give me the vows. And we're told how to say it. The Troa Kepa it means feeling joy. And the preceptor will help us, after the vows are given, reflect on the incredible virtue. Before the vows are given, they will inspire us to recognize the incredible virtue that we'll be able to collect by following this vowed behavior. These bodhisattva activities and keeping the vows to avoid not doing them generates such amazing goodness that we want that joy and eagerness as part of our motivation. I want those vows. I want to use those vows to grow my goodness so that I can reach the direct perception of emptiness with bodhicitta in my heart so that I can really help others in that ultimate way to stop all of their suffering. That part of the sermon will include reminding us about the marriage of karma and emptiness. Because without understanding the true nature of suffering, the true nature of no suffering, the true nature of happiness, none of this can do anything. So they will pump up our joy and eagerness by reminding us of our wisdom, compassion.
Yeah, that's sure. Wished.
Righty. Geshe-la said, if we've been studying and practicing Buddhism for a while, and it still seems like nothing special has shifted in our lives and ourselves, then maybe we haven't been keeping our vowed behavior as well as we think we have, or as well as we might. When we do guide our behavior by way of our vows, the seeds planted are so different than what they were before, that shifts shifts will happen. What I find is that our expectation of the shift is different than the actual shift that happens. And so we don't notice, right? We think nothing special is happening because we expect a certain something special to happen, and that certain special doesn't happen. So we miss the 6 other special things that did happen. And we call them ordinary and unrelated to our bodhisattva behavior, when in fact, oh, those were special. Yeah, so a lot of times when we think, oh, this isn't working, it's our perception, oh, right? It's our expectation that's getting in the way. So we're still talking about these preliminaries. The last preliminary, look how good your Tibetan is getting. Doesn't that look like English? Asks about obstacles. I don't have the Tibetan for that. The vow master in the ceremony will actually ask us these series of questions. We're meant to answer the questions in our own minds. The Buddhas are all listening. So we're answering the question to the Buddhas, not to the people around us, or even to the preceptor, although theoretically they know also. So it's a series of questions. Do you really want to be a bodhisattva? Meaning, are you sure you want to be the one who benefits all living beings, all, not leaving a single one out? Secondly, are you really sure you want these vows? Right? We're checking our motivation. Is my desire genuine? Is it forced? Am I doing it because my friends are doing it? Like, really, what's our motivation? Third, do you understand the vows? Like, are you sure you know what you're getting into? It's the beauty of bodhisattva vows is we're supposed to know first. Then third, do you believe you'll be able to keep the vows even just a little? And they tell us, if your answer to each one of these questions is yes, pretty well, then that's enough to carry on with the ceremony, right? If you honestly say to any one of those or more, I really don't think so, then you can stay and take the ceremony as the wish to grow the wish. Or you can back out and say, I realize I'm not ready. Okay, and that is fine to change your mind partway. This is the section where you check in carefully. And then in the final end, you do say, yes, pretty well, to give the preceptor the permission to go on. That leads us to the Nishi, the main event. In the main event, the vow giver says, do you want these bodhisattva vows? And you say, yes, I do. And then the vow giver says, do you really want these bodhisattva vows? And you say, yes, I do. And the preceptor says, are you sure you want these bodhisattva vows? And you say, yes, I do. And the preceptor snaps their fingers. And when you hear the snap, the vows come on. It's like your subtle body lights up with these vows. The instant the fingers are snapped. And they'll tell you that. And they'll say, you now have your vows. And we're encouraged to think, wow, I have vows. I have vows. You all know Joanna Prather. She's German. Yeah, probably Susanna probably says vows like this too. So it comes out as vows. I have my wows. You know, my ear hears wows, and it's so perfect, right? It's like, I have my wows, because they are wow to have vows. You know, wow, rejoice in our wows. And then you get to sit back down, because by now your knee is hurting. And we get to the conclusion, the juk joke. The conclusion has 4 parts. First, so this is the preceptor doing their job. The preceptor will tell you, next, you turn to the Buddha and make sure that they understand that you've just sworn to him or her that you will become like them, that you have just pledged to become a being who can help all others in that ultimate way. So you'll be instructed to turn to face the image of Shakyamuni. Say this thing in your mind. You know, did you hear me, Buddha? I just swore to you that I'm going to become a Buddha just like you. And then we honor them with prostrations. We make 3 prostrations in each of the 10 directions. So you do the 4 cardinal directions first. You're always facing east, whether you are facing east or not, you are. So you start with the prostration forward. You go clockwise for Bodhisattva vows. So you turn towards your right shoulder, make 3 prostrations, to the back, 3 prostrations, to your left, 3 prostrations. Then you go past front to the ordinal direction, 3, 3, 3, 3. Then you make 3 to the up and 3 to the down. And the way we do that is to do east and west direction again. And so what you typically do is, like, all of this is facing the altar. You turn with your back to the altar and do 3 more, and then facing the altar again, 3 more. And that makes the 3 prostrations in the 10 directions. It takes a little while. You take your time, right? You'll be huffing and puffing. It's like exercise. But the idea is we are showing our respect to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in all the 10 directions, right? So imprint in our own minds that we have done this and we're happy about it. Then you get to sit back down. And next, the Lama gives a rousing short sermon about how wonderful it is that you have your vows and the benefit of having vows. And they will typically remind us that our getting vows caused an earthquake in all Buddha paradises, like a good earthquake, where it's like, boom, happen. And if there were any Buddhas or Bodhisattvas that couldn't get there for us, they're aware of us. And it seems a little contradictory to me, because like we brought them all. They're all right there with us. But even still, like, boom, the earth shakes because of the goodness that we did. And all those Buddhas now like envelop you as one of the family. So yes, all Buddhas are omniscient. They know us all. They love us all. But when we declare ourselves in this way, when we take refuge, when we grow our bodhicitta, when we take these vows, it's like you've had a proper introduction. And now you're on their radar screen as a specific person, as opposed to, one of the face of the masses. So it's an important piece of our practice shift to get this sense, oh, now I am I'm part of the family of the Buddhas, right? I'm a new baby bodhisattva, and the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas they're gonna take care of me like the, little baby sister. You know how the older brothers just adore their baby sister, and until she gets to be annoying at about age 2, they just lavish her with their attention. And it's like that for the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And so the preceptor is supposed to garner this feeling in ourselves, this joy and happiness that we are now part of the family. Next, they instruct us to do a Thanksgiving offering. So again, we do the 37 pile mandala. The preceptor will do it as well, because the preceptor is thanking all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for funneling through them to give you the vows. And then lastly, the vow giver instructs us to not advertise our vows to those without faith, meaning you don't go around saying, I do this because I have vows. Rather, we show off our vows through our behavior without anybody needing to know what our ulterior motive is, right? To get you enlightened as quickly as possible, right? To help you in this ultimate way. I will go pick up groceries for you. I will, right? Do whatever apparently worldly thing that we probably always did. Now we're a little bit more on availability to do things, and it's our own mind that is changing that deed from a worldly deed that ends up suffering for everybody to a deed that will help that other become a Buddha someday. The deed's not different. It's the us and our state of mind that's different. And the way that awareness grows and grows and grows in us is by taking and keeping our vows, which the vow will, well, anyway, yes, taking and keeping our vows. And then we have a party and celebrate. The rejoicing part, right, is the celebration. We've planted seeds. We want to get them strong. We want to grow them. And so it's also helpful, like after you've received your vows, to remember to rejoice in having your vows. Like if you're keeping a rejoicing list, right? Already it's probably too long to actually go through all of them. But when you go to bed at night, or you'll be awake all night. But having vows is a good rejoicable. To remember, wow, right? I have vows. Whether I did them well today or not, I think I still have them. Yay. To strengthen them. Okay. That's how to get our vows when one decides to get them. You can be well prepared. Next class, we start into learning what the vows are. And I'm sorry, those next couple of classes are just dry lists about the vows. Most people like go, ugh. But I'll do my best to keep them a little bit inspired anyway. I mean, they're great discussions, but people get. Anyway, yes, Kong Li.
Yeah, teacher, I have a few questions. You want to do then later I'll ask, I guess, for this one.
Yeah, okay, let's dedicate first so I don't get distracted by the question. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We've learned a lot that we will use to go on to become one who can help them in that deep and ultimate way someday. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hand. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And then carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everybody you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness. And may it be so. All right. So Kong Lee usually has great questions. You're welcome to stay, but if you need to go, you're welcome to also go.
No, this is meant for my understanding and clarification. So, actually for this, Bodhisattva and then vows, you have all the ceremony that you need to go through. So is it only meant for Bodhisattva vows and not others like, fully ordained monk and fully ordained nun? Is it? You get what I mean?
Yeah, the ceremony, the sequence of the ceremony is similar for any vows that are being given.
Uh-huh.
But of course, the specifics of each ceremony is different. So there is when we're giving Bodhisattva vows, the whole vow ceremony starts with retaking our refuge, retaking our lifetime lay vows, and then taking the Bodhisattva vows for new, which means that if we don't already have refuge or lay vows before we take our Bodhisattva vow ceremony, by default, you get them. So when I was learning all of this, the tradition was, for a non-Buddhist, we did a ceremony for taking refuge the first time. And then a long time later, we took a ceremony for taking the 5 lifetime lay vows. And then not too long after that, we took our ceremony for the Bodhisattva vows.
So this means that actually every individual's vow has their own ceremony, but only thing is that this book they only mention the Bodhisattva vows. Is it like this?
Well, the books that we are studying are specific to the Bodhisattva vow.
Okay. So
Yes.
sorry. You continue, teacher.
because
Because
that's the course we're studying is Bodhisattva vows. Course 9 is studying about vows in general.
Oh, okay. So and then just now you say that we need to take refuge first in a way that this is the starting point, isn't it? And why do we have a new names for that? Because I have that and then so every if let's say you're taking refuge, you'll be giving another names for it. Why is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I think it has to, I've never received a teaching on it specifically.
Uh,
But each time when we take refuge, I got new names when I did refuge, when I did diamond way vows, and when I did ordained vows. I didn't get bodhisattva vows as part of a lower yoga tantra, which is why when they gave bodhisattva vows related to medicine Buddha, they gave people names. So the new name, I think, is to represent the fact that you are a different person once you commit yourself to your path. So especially for a non-Buddhist to become Buddhist formally, that's making a big change in our identity. So they give you a refuge name. I never related to my refuge name. And then, as an ordained person, to go from a lay person to ordained person, again, you've just made this big shift in your identity. And so they give you a name, and it's more common to use the new ordained name. And then when you take diamond way vows, you get another new name, which is curious because you're not allowed to use it publicly, but you're supposed to use it personally as this secret identity. Yeah.
Oh,
So the name has to do with identity.
oh, it's sort of like it's a new you. Now you
Yeah.
have a different status and things like that to remind you, kind of like that. Oh,
Yes.
okay. And another one is that just now you're saying that we need to make prostrations to the 10 directions.
Yeah.
And then the 10 directions, it is a must, is it? Because sort of like you are salute to me, my understanding that you are salute to all the the Buddha and Bodhisattva, and then you inform them that, hey, now I'm one of your, is it I don't know.
Yeah, the prostrations are meant as a physical action that we do to establish our respect for this new family that we're a part of. And it really has to do with our subtle body. It has a whole lot of subtle meanings to do your prostrations in each of the 10 directions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, there's so many things that so never mind. I just asked this. Thank you so much.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All righty. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Okay,
Have a
bye-bye.
nice week. I'll see you Friday morning.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
stopped. Stop.